All right, hump day. Welcome to Frontline, 6 o'clock here on the East Coast. We'll begin some breaking news tonight. President Trump saying that there is no time pressure on the Iran ceasefire right now. Okay. The president also saying that the blockade does scare the Iranians more than the bombs do, which I have to agree with him on. Going to have more on this in just a few minutes with Eric Trump. Plus, the VA redistricting battle. It passes, but then a judge in a single renamed red district has now ruled it unconstitutional. No doubt setting up a massive battle for a state Supreme Court showdown. We're going to give you all the details on how ridiculous this is from the beginning in just a minute. And Georgia Congressman David Scott passed away today, becoming the 5th member of Congress to die since January 2025. I mean, our condolences to the family, but kind of begs the question, is it time for term limits or not? But first, if Democrats actually had good policies, they wouldn't need to fix the game like they did in Virginia. Let's do this. What do I keep saying? If Republicans played by the same rules as Democrats, we would absolutely destroy them electorally everywhere. But we don't, except this one judge who just ruled Virginia's new map unconstitutional because he probably saw all the information I'm about to go through with you. But watch, our liberal court is probably going to overrule him, and we'll be back at square one. So the Virginia redistricting referendum happened last night, okay? The perfect example of how Democrats respond to any legitimate redistricting like what Republicans did in Texas.
But what a night in Virginia. We keep saying it. When we fight fire with fire, we win. And we are winning all across the United States, in state houses, in courthouses, and now in the court of public opinion.
First off, Gavin Newsom should not be saying anything about fire after his entire state burned down because his fire hydrants were empty. But I also would look, I wouldn't exactly call 51%, that, by the way, owns less than 5% of the guns, public opinion. Also, looking at the wording of this ballot initiative, here, look. Should the Constitution of Virginia be amended to allow the General Assembly to temporarily, not temporary at all, adopt new congressional districts to restore fairness in the upcoming elections? No! Restore fairness? Scott Jennings actually laid this out perfectly, how not fair this map is.
Virginia literally had the fairest maps in the nation. They had a 6-5 map, 6 Democrats, 5 Republicans. In terms of proportional representation, they had the fairest map in the nation that was drawn, by the way, by an independent commission that the voters asked for just a few years ago. Now they will have the least fair maps in the nation.
Fair? Look, I'm not just complaining here, okay? I'm going to give you my solution to this in just a second, okay? There's about 0 Republicans that'll probably listen to me, but they'll probably also wonder why they lose in November. But I really want to wind you up first, to hammer home how little Democrats who ran as moderates care about your opinion if it doesn't involve keeping them in power, okay? This is what changed in the middle of the night for fairness. You tell me a single reason why Republicans shouldn't do the exact same thing. This is the same map. They shouldn't do the exact same thing to edge out Democrat votes in their cities and states. Democrats basically negated rural districts. This is the change. Tell me how that better represents some of those districts. Look at this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 representing all this, okay? Basically, they're all in the suburbs of Washington, deep blue Washington, D.C., where now 5 Democrat congressmen could all essentially live within like 2 miles of each other and still represent geographically 40% of the state of Virginia for, fairness. This wasn't fair at all. A state that went, like Scott Jennings said, 45-55 Democrat in the last presidential election, that was basically 60-40 congressionally represented. So to remove that, to remove this is who voted to override the previous map. Less than 10% of the districts in deep blue areas that already had Democrat representation somehow voted to take away all the other districts' Republican congressmen, except for 1, by a 2-point margin. Mind you, and this could be relevant if Democrats keep pushing this, because they took representation from all these people who own all the firearms in the state. Oh, you might think that's like hyperbole and that I'm, dinking around or it's fringe. It's not. It's literally built into the Constitution because our founding fathers knew that weak men one day would try to take the representation of strong men by persuading other weak men to do things and vote for things, by the way, that are persuaded with tax dollars from strong men. As one judge in the very red, very armed area of Virginia just ruled it unconstitutional, issuing an injunction about not being able to certify this election, I'm sure that's going to be appealed, and it probably will be overturned by a blue court. We'll be at the Supreme Court in no time. By the way, in a manner that Trump called out today, okay? He said a rigged election took place last night in the great Commonwealth of Virginia. All day long, Republicans were winning. The spirit was unbelievable until the very end when, of course, there was a massive mail-in ballot drop. Where have I heard that before, he said. Look, I'm not making a decision one way or another. I'm just pointing out that the math, not so much mathing tonight. This was the ballot count, the type of voting. Day of voting went 53% to no redistricting. 47% of early voting went no redistricting. And there it is. 73% of mail-in ballots went to yes on redistricting. And then, weird, there were 60,000 mysteriously counted in 5 minutes at the very end when 98% was reporting in a manner that doesn't have the capacity to be tabulated at that rate. But what do I know? There's this weird thing. I'm trying to think, oh, that's right, the Save America Act. It would rein all this stuff in, but yet Republicans won't pass it. While Hakeem Jeffries, the guy who will be the Speaker of the House if Republicans don't get their act together, last night said this: maximum warfare everywhere all the time. And we're out there with like kid gloves. They're saying it out loud. We played James Carville saying that they're going to pack the courts. They're going to add 4 Democrat more senators. They're going to rig elections for the rest of time. They don't care about fair fights. By the way, where was the RNC during this? Democrats outspent the Republicans 10-1 on this effort. What did they think was going to happen? But despite that, this is nearly every presidential election dating back to after Ronald Reagan beat Mondale in 49 states. But it's basically been since then a 50-50 proposition nationally every 4 years. Imagine if Republicans played by the same rules as Democrats. I showed you the other day that Democrats in New England have 100% representation of 6 states that more than 40% of the area voted for Donald Trump. Perhaps it's time where Texas, they allow 13 Democrat seats to exist, Florida 8, Georgia 5, North Carolina 4, Michigan 6. How about we play by those same rules and make all those states only have 1 seat Democrat? Republicans would pick up 31 seats right there. I mean, why not? While we're at it, let's redo the census now, like Trump wanted to do, without counting illegals. They're only counted because Democrats made it happen and Republicans let them do it. That would give states constitutional cover to further redistrict states with the Republican trifectas in state government. Alabama could eliminate, zooming into that, you could probably get rid of at least one of those congressional districts, okay? Indiana, Trump won that state by, I think, like 20 points. I'm sure we could find some sort of way to get rid of both of those seats in Indiana. Kansas, same thing there. They have 1 blue district that's like a little part of a city. Dilute that blue city into 4 other rural districts and make the whole state red. Missouri, probably easy, very easy. They only have 2 congressional districts that are Democrat, but they're so tiny, I'd be willing to bet you could figure out a way to kind of get them out of the mix. Tennessee, since Virginia made 1 city into 5 districts, make 5 districts, dilute 1 city. Easy peasy. Let's not even get started on lawfare. Democrats waged against Republicans. Half the Democrat leadership would probably be in jail if we actually played the same game they did. This is easy. Look, it's legal. Probably should have been done 20 years ago. Call your congressman and ask him why it's not. Executive Vice President of the Trump Organization, probably one of the most targeted people outside your father, Eric, so I'm sure you're telling Republicans to take the gloves off and wrap their fists with chains.
Well, Carl, I don't know why it doesn't surprise anybody, right? Listen, they've cheated the entire time. They started by making up the Russia hoax. They made up, the dirty dossiers. They were storming our house. They were raiding Mar-a-Lago. They were indicting my father. They indicted my father 91 times. You know, they threw him off of Twitter, they threw him off of Facebook, they threw him off of Instagram, they threw him off of YouTube. You know why? Because they didn't want the man to have a voice. They wanted him to be in jail. I mean, do the games that they play in Virginia, do they shock you at all? I can tell you, as a person who was on the receiving end of all of this, none of this comes as a shock. You know, the Democrats have policies that are horrible. You know, they can't win on their policies, so what do? They cheat like hell. They go after the family of their political opponents. They try and throw their political opponents in jail. They try and remove the First Amendment right of their political opponents. They try and bankrupt their political opponents. They will. I mean, you read a great tweet, but maximum leverage, maximum fight all the time, however it takes to stay in power. Look what they've done. I mean, you mentioned so many of the states in New England, but look what they've done in Illinois. You know, Illinois is one of the most poorly run states in the country, and yet they have 100% control. Look what they've done in Maryland. The same thing. They have unlimited control in Maryland, despite the fact that you've got large Republican, representation. If you compare that to obviously Texas, the reason they redrew lines in Texas is because 2.6 million people left California. And you know where the vast majority of them went? They went to Texas to get the hell away from Gavin Newsom's ridiculous policies. That's why they changed some maps in Texas. But yet they'll, rig Virginia as a way to offset those votes, even though you have a state that's incredibly purple, as you know better than anybody.
But Eric, look, you guys, your father is literally the king of the New York City skyline, okay? Reinvented it for the world to see. And yet, once they got power, which they've had for quite some time now, since Pataki, they destroyed the state, and you picked up your entire company and left because after building the city, you left because once they are in power, they're so bad at running it.
Well, of course they're bad at running it. I mean, look at what happened under de Blasio. New York went to hell. Crime, went through the roof. Look at their tax policy. I mean, the greatest exodus in arguably world history was, the flight from New York. I mean, California was pretty damn close, but the flight from New York to Florida and New York to North Carolina and so many other states because people couldn't take it anymore. And then you have these ridiculous things. All buses are going to be free, and then you see that plan collapse this week because they can't afford it. And we're going to nationalize grocery stores. This could be a great idea. Other than the fact that, there's going to be about 6 items that, they're going to hold pricing on. I mean, every single one of their bad ideas fails. And people are sick and tired of it, all while streets are dirty and all while crime goes rampant and all while, kids can't walk their kids to school without, smelling pot in the streets and seeing illicit drug use and everything else.
But the
Democrats are the worst governors in the world, but they're willing to cheat. And they do it every single time. They're willing to rig the system. We saw them rig the system in 2020. We saw them rig the system, frankly, last night. I saw them personally rig the system as they indicted an amazing man who gave up everything to run for commander-in-chief of the United States, gave up everything. The ultimate American dream, to try and help this nation. And yet, what does he do? He gets indicted 91 times for absolute nonsense and has to fight for his life alongside of me every single second for years just to stay out of jail for something he didn't do. This is the Democratic Party in the United States of America. It is horrible. It's un-American, but it comes as no surprise to me anymore.
Eric,
I mean, it comes as no surprise, Carl, and that's an incredibly sad thing to say.
The problem is they can't face him at the policy box because his economy. I mean, look, everybody said he's going to tank the economy and stock market. We're literally hitting record highs today again on the economy, and the Democrats, their entire states are falling apart.
They ran Kamala Harris, she was the first person to fall out of the primaries on the Democratic side in 2020. She had 0% of the vote. They ran her, a person who's out there talking about price gauging. I've never heard of price, I'm pretty good at the business stuff, right? That's what I do every day. I've heard of price gouging, and she's going out giving economic speeches on price gauging. I mean, this is a person who's supposed to be border czar that never visited the damn border, Carl, right? I mean, these are the people that they put in a seat. They're empty vessels that they put in these seats to run. And they know they can go out and they can rig the system in every way, shape, and form. And it's really rather remarkable. It's really rather remarkable. Republicans have great policy. The economy right now is the best it's ever been. The best it's ever been. It's even going to be better when obviously this whole Iranian situation is finished. But they know they have to cheat. They can't win on policy, and so they do what they did last night. and that's how they gain their advantage.
Knowing you as I do, like seeing what you went through for the last 10 years, it is remarkable that you have stayed fighting. So we appreciate that on behalf of all of us, Eric. Thank you.
Appreciate it, Carl.
All right. We got some breaking news from the Trump administration, though, as tensions remain high with Iran. Navy Secretary John Phelan is leaving his role effective immediately. The War Department not giving a reason for Phelan's departure, but Undersecretary Hung Cao, friend of this show, will be elevated to acting Navy Secretary for the time being, and we're going to continue to watch this closely. All right. Coming up, Connecticut Democrats look to sacrifice your right to religious liberty and a bunch of other stuff, the altar of vaccination. What's behind their shameless power grab? Well, there's some homeschooling issues behind it, too. But first, the Southern Poverty Law Center, the self-appointed hate police, just got slammed with an 11-count federal indictment. We broke that here for you last night. You will not believe where the donor millions actually went. We got the editor-in-chief of the Federalist, Mollie Hemingway, coming up on that in a sec.
A Social Security update. Millions collect Social Security, but 70% of Americans don't get their full benefits. Now, a new report shows how to boost your Social Security by as much as $188,000. Author Matthew Allen reveals 5 key strategies in a new report. Newsmax calls it the best guide for retirees. Everyone needs this free Social Security report. Act today to get your full benefits.
Think you need a new roof? Think again and save thousands. We'll help you put off the high cost of a roof replacement for at least 5 years.
Or 10.
Or sometimes even 15.
We're America's most trusted roofer because we always try to save your roof rather than replace it.
We'll restore your roof for a fraction of the cost of a new one. But don't wait. If your roof loses too much protective coating, it's too late. Call now or scan the code and we'll give you an assessment of your roof for free.
At Allegiance, we do it differently. Flags 100% made in America by Americans with American materials.
We're proud to create jobs right here in South Carolina. It might not be the easiest way, but it's the right way.
We make American flags the way they should be made, where they should be made.
Join our pledge to keep the American flag truly American.
Visit showallegiance.com to get your high-quality American flag today. That's showallegiance.com.
It's April, time for digital spring cleaning.
I shall purge the clutter!
Whoa, use PCmatic. Our whitelist technology automatically cleans out malware and junk files without...
Delete the cookies! Delete!
Without breaking the computer. Get PCmatic. We clean the smart way. American-made security for homes, businesses, and government agencies.
Visit PCmatic.com today.
The SPLC is a nonprofit entity that purports to fight white supremacy and racial hatred by reporting on extremist groups and conducting research to inform law enforcement groups with the goal of dismantling these groups. As the indictment describes, the SPLC was not dismantling these groups. It was instead manufacturing the extremism it purports to oppose by paying sources to stoke racial hatred.
Still not forgetting about the Epstein list, but this bills itself as one of the most prominent civil rights organizations in the country. This is the Southern Poverty Law Center, also known as the SPLC, is facing an 11-count federal indictment that we broke on this show last night after the DOJ accused the nonprofit of misleading donors and secretly funneling millions, not a few bucks, millions of dollars to some of the very same extremist groups it claimed to be fighting. Wait until you hear who they are. The investigation claims that $3 million of donor money was dispersed between 2014 and 2023 to groups including $1 million to the neo-Nazi organization National Alliance, $300,000 to a member of an Aryan Nations affiliate, $270K to members of Unite the Right group. Remember them? They're the ones who literally planned the Charlottesville rally back in 2017. And if you recall, where white nationalist groups marched with torches and clashed with counter-protesters, violence erupted, culminating in a car attack that killed one woman and injured dozens others, which, by the way, became the key talking point of the left for years. Remember the very fine people comment when they didn't play the second half of the soundbite where Trump said they should be condemned totally? The same rally. That's, by the way, where Joe Biden pointed to the reason he ran for president in 2020. Roll this.
I ran for president in 2020 because of what I saw in Charlottesville in August of 2017.
Was all manufactured. It didn't stop there. Kamala Harris brought it up again in 2024 presidential debate, keeping that Charlottesville lie front and center political narrative.
Let's remember Charlottesville, where there was a mob of people carrying tiki torches, spewing anti-Semitic hate. And what did the president then at the time say? There were fine people on each side.
Oh, and those tiki torches might have been paid for by the very people who were condemning it. And now, with these allegations surfacing, some are pointing back to a nearly decade-old tweet and article noting that figures like Alex Jones were condemned for raising similar concerns about the SPLC long before this investigation even started. Chalk another win up for that guy. Get my tinfoil hat tomorrow, because it's usually right. And it's worth noting that the same organization came after me, too. We're taking a tweet or something that I said wildly out of context. I was actually talking about terrorists in Iraq, but that's fine, too. They can print whatever they want. At least I didn't have to pay them to hate me. The DOJ hitting the SPLC with 6 counts of wire fraud, 4 counts of bank fraud, then 1 count of conspiracy to commit money laundering. But let's zoom out for a second. We live in a world that has so little problems that a group who claims to fight hate had to pay 3 million bones to invent hate. Folks, this is the tip of the iceberg. Keep in mind that probably every leftist activist group is probably just as corrupt, but probably just as dishonest and sinister as this one. Rosalind Hanson is the director of development at Moms for Liberty that was labeled an extremist group by the SPLC. Ryan Bangert, senior vice president at Alliance Defending Freedom, another organization labeled as a hate group. You guys look mighty hatey to me. So, Rosalind, I'll go to you first on this. I mean, this has got to be music to your ears.
The truth will always set us free, Carl. So I am grateful that the DOJ is investigating, because the SPLC put a target on everyday moms like me. They put us in the same camp as terrorists, murderers, and bigots. And so it's finally time that they are getting their comeuppance that they deserve.
Hey, Ryan, what's been your reaction to this whole thing?
Well, Carl, it's like someone running around smashing windows and then offering window repair services. I mean, it's just unbelievable that a group like the SPLC, which for years has been known to be a problematic group, they have an F rating from Charity Watch. They were reported to send tens of millions of dollars offshore to places like the Cayman Islands. So it should come as no surprise that they've been engaging in highly questionable financial behavior, according to the indictment by the DOJ.
Yeah, has the DOJ been in touch with you at all, Rosalind?
The DOJ hasn't been in touch with us, but at Moms for Liberty, we are talking often about the personal impact that has happened to each one of us because of these labelings in our own communities, and being able to just speak freely at school boards about wanting to improve literacy rates, but we can't do that because of such a hateful label from an organization that completely disrespected its own donor intent. And make no mistake, as the director of development at Moms for Liberty, I know full well how important it is to respect your donor's intent.
Real quick, Ryan, before I let you guys go, do you see any repercussions? Like, are you guys going to go after damages or anything like that on the horizon?
Well, I'll tell you, Carl, the first thing that needs to happen is every corporation that's relying on the SPLC's hate map needs to stop today. If this doesn't convince everyone that the SPLC is a discredited, dishonest, intellectually and morally bankrupt organization, then nothing will.
Yeah.
It is time for every corporation to cut their ties entirely with this group and stop relying on them, just like the FBI did under President Trump.
I've been saying that since I heard about them. So I agree with you both. Well, I'm glad both of you guys have been vindicated on this. Rosalind, Ryan, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, more on this. Let's bring in the editor-in-chief of the Federalist and author of the new book, Alito, the Justice Who Reshaped the Supreme Court and Restored the Constitution, Mollie Hemingway, who's been calling out the SPLC for over a decade now. What do you think about this?
Well, as someone who has long been critical of this hateful group that smears anyone who is in any way conservative as racist and hateful, even I was shocked by the allegations in this indictment. I had no idea that they were actually funding the people who planned the Charlottesville event, which, as you noted, led to the death of a woman. I mean, this is very serious what they're dealing with. And I totally agree with your previous guest that anybody who in any way participates with this hate group, whether they are the media, the donors, the corporate donors, the big tech companies that used them to target and censor people like me and people like the Federalist where I work, that, I mean, it's a really bad group.
Yeah, no, I mean, they really are. That's literally what they did. They tried to keep people from being able to function in day-to-day life by calling them hateful and bigoted, and they're funding tiki torches to burn at a neo-Nazi rally. Unbelievable. Here's some breaking news that just came out, like right as you were coming on. The Trump administration has reportedly agreed to pay $1.25 million, which is not a lot of money, to the 2016 Trump campaign advisor Carter Page for being illegally spied on by the DOJ and FBI. This is great news, not enough money, and I want to know who's fired and going to jail over it, but good for him.
Well, Carl, I completely agree. He should be getting much more money than that for what he went through. He was victimized in some ways worse than anybody else during the Russia collusion hoax. This was a man who served his country well, was smeared as a Russian spy, had his business destroyed, and had the media, again, participating in what was obviously a lie. And all of them should be, I wish all of them could give him the money he is owed. Yeah, so your new book, actually, I'm a huge fan of Alito, okay? So I think he did massive things. Tell us a little bit about it. Well, it just came out on Tuesday, and I get to tell stories that are happening inside the court about what's happening between the justices, how they come to their decisions, and really show that inside story, including what happened after the Dobbs leak, where the liberal justices actually conspired to delay the release of that decision. And a decision isn't final until it's released from the court. But they intentionally delayed it, even as their colleagues were under death threat. Justice Kavanaugh actually faced down an attempted assassin in front of his house. And it's just, really interesting information, but also just about his jurisprudence, how he compares to other justices. And it was a really, really interesting book to write. And I'm thrilled that it's doing so well and already climbing the bestseller list.
The institution of the Supreme Court is like one of the few remaining ones that I still have faith in, especially after COVID. So, Mollie, we really appreciate you coming on.
Thank you, Carl.
All right, coming up, the future attorneys at UCLA Law School proving that they're going to have a pretty hard time entering the workforce in the real world, and their little tantrum has gotten the attention of the Justice Department. Not good for a new lawyer. Next.
An official message from Medicare.
I turned 65 in a few months. I knew it was time to figure out Medicare, so I went to the official source, Medicare.gov. I got the facts, and you can too.
An official message from Medicare. You have a lot going on. If you're ready to sign up for Medicare, find the most up-to-date information at Medicare.gov, the official source for all things Medicare. Paid for by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
Doctors say having a medical emergency kit is like having an urgent care and pharmacy at home. Let me bring in Dr. McCullough to explain more.
Most people know when they're getting sick, but waiting to see a doctor is often too late.
So the key is having medicines before you need them.
Yes, and it includes doctor-prescribed medicines to treat common and serious issues like generic Z-Pak, amoxicillin, antibiotics, antivirals for flu, pneumonia, strep, ear and sinus infections, UTIs, and more.
So it is like having an urgent care at home.
Exactly. No waiting, no pharmacy, no copays. You feel better faster and avoid serious complications and hospitalizations.
How do you know what to take?
Just match your symptoms to the doctor-written guide or schedule a quick telehealth call.
Great advice. I understand ordering is fast online, and we've put the website and $45 off code on the screen. Thank you, doctor.
Visit urgentcarekit.com/news, promo code news.
My cell phone bill kept going up. I started to look around, what are our other options? With Consumer Cellular, I'm saving over $50 a month. Same coverage, same data, same talk, same cell phone, simple.
So why am I paying way more for a big wireless plan? What am I getting for my money?
Consumer Cellular gives you the same fast, reliable nationwide network for up to half the cost of big wireless.
Same tower, same coverage.
I feel like people should know that.
They cut my bill just about in half.
I'm saving almost $100 a month.
That's over $1,000 a year.
Not only did I save money, but our coverage was vastly improved. It was fantastic. There's got to be a catch, and I'm going to find it by going straight to the CEO himself, Ed Evans. What's up, Ed?
Because we serve primarily the 50-plus market today, we know our customers are going to use a lot less data. We can then set our pricing substantially lower than what the big three are able to do on the exact same networks.
Oh, I love that.
My job is to help you save money on wireless, even if you're on an unlimited plan.
My bill with the big carriers was over $300, and with consumer cellular, it's about $100.
Our customers ranked us #1 in network coverage satisfaction. And there's no long-term contracts.
When I look at what I had with Verizon, I'm not sure what I was paying extra for.
And yes, you could keep your number, no problem. Want to bring your phone? That's great too. We'll have you wrapped up in about 20 minutes. Really.
We hadn't gone back. We're not going back. We're with Consumer Cellular.
Call now and see how one of our U.S.-based Switch Pros can cut your bill by up to half. That's right, up to half. And when you call right now, you'll get your second month free. Just use the code SECONDFREE. And AARP members save even more. Call 1-800-918-0560. That's 1-800-918-0560.
Hey, remember that ActBlue thing, the Democrat fundraising organization being investigated for potential foreign donors and the use of straw donors and Smurf donors who also fleeced unsuspecting old people? Well, apparently, while the employees of ActBlue were being questioned during a House deposition, quote, the employees invoked their Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination in response to every single one of the committee's substantive questions, 146 times in total, they said. Weird. I know you can't use that against them in a court of law for not answering the question, but I sure can use it against them in this show. So let's also not forget back in 2020 when it was uncovered that millions of the donors were actually unemployed people or on some sort of retirement benefits. Saying, quote, an analysis of Federal Election Commission data by the conservative Take Back Action Fund found that 2.8 million ActBlue transactions in 2019, or 47.4%, were made by donors who identified themselves as unemployed or listed no employer. And I just got to ask, what the heck has Pam Bondi been, or was she doing, for her entire year in that position? We sit here and expose all this stuff over and over again. We get all riled up. We give it to them on a silver platter. We do the investigations for them, and nothing gets done. Joe Pags, host of the Joe Pags Show. Sir, you've been reporting on this stuff and this and many other things for a while, and nothing gets done. It's just maddening for guys like us.
I can confirm without a doubt, when I was unemployed, which was for 2 weeks since I was 12, that's it, I didn't get paid any money, and I couldn't donate any money. Right, exactly. I didn't donate any money to anybody. And again, you said a couple of things that are so important. Elderly people were being taken advantage of. People's names were being put on donations that didn't donate anything. And then a lot of people that were allegedly donating didn't have any job or any income source. And you're right. What exactly, and I like her, what was Pam Bondi doing for that entire time in office? And now we're talking about 2020 still? 6 years later, we've got no resolution as to why they were able to cheat. I'll say the word, you say the word all the time. This is cheating when you're allegedly donating money that you can't possibly have earned anywhere. And people, what was it, James O'Keefe and others have knocked on doors and said, hey, did you make this donation? They said, I have no idea what you're talking about. I didn't make any donation.
Yeah,
so
at
some point, Carl, we've got to get to the bottom of it. We have to.
Oh, no, it's 100% got to get to the bottom of it. Here's another crazy story. UCLA last night, far-left activists and liberal students disrupted, they heckled a DHS attorney who was there speaking to, law students, because it's a law school. They were chanting, their creative little stupid things, no ICE, no KKK, no fascists in the USA. So now we have law students, okay, who have no ability or tolerance for opposing views. These are people, Joe, who are going to go into the workforce, into the courtroom, in a profession that is debating differing opinions, but they can't handle a speaker from an opposing opinion to theirs. I mean, are you kidding me?
They're supposed to practice law, but don't understand it's against the law to violate somebody's civil rights to freely speak. And you can't just interrupt when you feel like it. This is why I love that Harmeet Dillon is in the Civil Rights Division of the DOJ. Every single case like this, she's like, I'm on it. I mean, all over on X, I'm on it. I'm doing it. We're investigating it. Yep. People like this should not have the ability to ever pass the bar. They should be kicked out of any law program because clearly they don't understand what the Constitution does and doesn't provide. What they're doing isn't peaceable. It isn't their right to assemble. They don't have the right to shout anybody anybody down. It is a restriction of somebody else's civil rights, and not a one of them should ever appear in a courtroom unless they're a defendant or something.
Correct. This also goes back to the study, though, showing that this is actually amazing, Joe. Male students, this was polled, are more tolerant of political rivals than female students were of people of the same viewpoints.
What?
Yeah, put that in your 19th Amendment.
That doesn't make any sense to me at all. I'm not sure I understand. I mean, in this day and age where everybody seems to be getting viral because they're debating, people who actually literally would have to debate in a courtroom over somebody's future, their life, it hangs in the balance, whether it's a civil case or a criminal case, don't have the ability to understand that somebody's going to disagree. Carl, when did that happen? I don't understand when that happened in our lifetimes, where people only are in their boxes, yet they think that they can go in and provide legal counsel to others, and they can go and be in the same classroom as somebody. This is probably perpetrated by the 12-to-1 liberal to conservative professors that we have in these colleges and universities, indoctrinating these numbskulls, and these numbskulls aren't smart enough to say, hold on a second, that doesn't seem right.
Yeah. There is no barometer in higher education anymore where it's like, hey, wait a minute, this doesn't seem right. They just do whatever they want. Joe Pags.
Exactly.
Pleasure to have you on as always, sir.
My man, thanks, Carl.
All right, coming up, New York City residents faced with quite the case of voters' remorse.
We will not be ashamed of using government to fight for the many, not simply the few.
Neighborhood that overwhelmingly backed Mamdani now facing the reality of the mayor that they voted for that they now know doesn't care for them at all. We get that and more in our Culture Clash next.
This is a bottlenose dolphin, and this is the breakthrough nutrient doctors discovered that helped dolphins age healthier. Now, over 100 peer-reviewed studies later, it can help you age healthier too. Discover how at fatty15.com.
What if your GLP-1 for weight loss was as easy to take as a mint? Small, discreet, and easy. Think about that. No needles. This is compounded tirzepatide, a mint-flavored tablet designed to fit into your daily routine. You simply let it dissolve under your tongue. No mixing, filling, or storing your own syringes. Tirzepatide helps curb appetite and supports healthier eating by reducing cravings, including for sweets and carbs. And when your appetite feels under control, it can make it easier to eat less and move intentionally towards your weight loss goals. If weight loss has been on your mind, this may be the needle-free option you've been looking for. A simple daily tablet, as easy to take as a mint. Getting started is fast and surprisingly accessible. Just complete a quick online physician consultation. Here's how.
Save $50 with promo code SLIM at noneedles.com/slim. That's promo code SLIM at noneedles.com/slim.
When we started Allegiance, we were shocked to learn how many American flags are actually made overseas.
If there's one thing that deserves to be made here in America, it should start with the American flag.
At Allegiance, we do it differently. Flags 100% made in America, by Americans, with American materials.
Join our pledge to make the American flag truly American.
Visit showallegiance.com to get your high-quality American flag today. That's showallegiance.com.
Dale, you really need to get that colon cancer screening.
Yeah, it's been forever.
Dale, we can do it with just a blood test. Shield.
Shield is for people 45 plus at average risk, not high risk for colon cancer. Ask your doctor about FDA-approved Shield.
Don't kibble your dog.
Hey, Dr. Marty.
Hey, back.
What's wrong with this?
Let's check it out. It's still kibble, which means they're ultra-processed. At Dr. Marty, we freeze-dried premium meats, fruits, and vegetables, and it's available at your local pet store.
Another lost summer scrolling and swiping? Turns out the fix is right here. Create new lifetime memories from the comfort of your backyard. No passports, no reservations. Latham's premium handcrafted pools can be installed in weeks. Our pools won't stain or crack and never require costly resurfacing. And with our crystal finish, you can bring your favorite exotic watercolor and shimmer right to your own backyard. Visit LathamPool.com now. Latham is a proud sponsor of USA Artistic Swimming.
In what, from my point of view, is one of the sweetest cases of you get what you vote for, one New York City neighborhood that has elected Ma'am Danny by more than an 80% margin is now suing that same mayor they just elected over his latest scheme. The group of East Village residents, they're suing Ma'am Danny to stop the opening of a new homeless shelter. Apparently they don't want hobos in there. And Ma'am Danny announced plans to close the Bellevue intake shelter back in March, but left out the part about opening a new one. Now, residents claim, quote, intake facilities experience heightened risk of crime, drug use, loitering, public indecency, and other safety concerns, in contrast with Bellevue facility in the area surrounding 8 East 3rd Street in a densely populated, more residential area. And these effects will be felt even more acutely. This is so funny. You're now reaping the benefits of, or the downfall, of the Democrat socialist mayor that you morons elected. Enjoy! Comedian Tom Cotter and host of Scrolling with Hayley Caronia. Tom, are you voting Democrat now? Is that what those are for?
No, not this time around. But you're absolutely right. I can't believe these idiots voted for Bomb Dummy, and now they're regretting it. Hello, you get what you pay for. You reap what you sow, and you asked for this. And it's the same with that.
But not in my backyard, Tom. Not in my backyard.
Well, the same thing's happening in Virginia with this Spamberger idiot that they all elected, and now they're all furious because she's cranked up every tax available. Yeah, you just got to pay attention. The voting public has to be smarter about this. They weren't. Hopefully, they'll learn their lesson in East Village.
Through pain. But Hayley's shaking her head. No, they won't. This is a crazy chart on government spending. Because we elect Democrats, we're here, showing 66% of all U.S. government spending, goes to some social welfare. I mean, now, keep in mind, Social Security and Medicare, you pay into your whole life. That's also included in that 66%. But two-thirds, Hayley?
2/3 is far too much. And does this include the nursing home fraud in California? Does this include the Leering centers in Minnesota? Does this include the PPP loans and other COVID-era pandemic scams? I mean, honestly, this is what the Democrats do. They scam the government. They scam the American taxpayer. The American person, they work really hard. They use their hard-earned money. They send it right back to the government. And then the government uses it on leeches and mooches that most of which shouldn't even be here in this country anyway.
Facts. You also can't make this up, Tom. AOC and Ayanna Pressley, two of my least favorite people, actually favorite to highlight because they're stupid, but they're doing an event that requires you to show a valid government ID to attend, but they don't want you using one to vote.
I know, the hypocrisy is rich. First of all, they should be required to show a brain scan, because if you're going there to listen to that blithering idiot flapper gums, you're an idiot. The ID, the whole thing is, voter ID is racist, or it's Jim Crow 2.0. When I was in high school, I joined the print club in my school just to make fake IDs, and we made tons of them. Everybody got a fake ID.
Statute of limitations has expired. Yeah, statute of limitations expired. Yeah.
Yes, no one can bust me now.
Yeah.
So I don't see, but the whole argument there is just completely BS. Sorry.
It's unbelievable. All right, Hayley, here's another lib who doesn't understand the irony of the ID checks. This is a purple-haired freak show at the Michigan Democrat State Party's convention. Watch this.
I arrived at 1 p.m. and I'm tapping out, even though I would like to make sure I can continue voting. Apparently, Curtis Hurdle, the chair of the Democratic Party here in Michigan, ran on changing this, ran on moving the primaries to be more accessible, because we voted mobilely. This whole thing, we showed up, we had to be in person. And here's another thing, they didn't even ask for my ID.
I thought that was racist. Yeah, it's so interesting because she said the quiet part out loud. I guess it isn't racist to require an ID. She just said it. I mean, no one even checked my ID. It's as simple as that. And you'll notice that Republicans are never worried about Black people or minorities or women who just got married. The Republicans don't worry about those people getting to the polls because most competent people can do this in their sleep. But the Democrats are really saying the quiet part out loud because they have all the stupid people voting for them. They can't figure it out.
Weird how that works out. Tom, Hayley, pleasure as always.
Thank you.
All right, coming up, the Socialist Republic of Connecticut, my home state, coming after more rights. Wait till you hear this power grab. Next.
You woke up with a sore throat and a low-grade fever. You know you are getting sick, so here's your choices. You can get sicker and miss work. Try to see a doctor this week or sit hours in a crowded waiting room at urgent care.
I have a smarter option for you. Open your medical emergency kit. Match your symptoms to doctor-recommended prescription in your booklet and take the right meds now and get well faster.
This is not a first aid kit. It's like having an urgent care in your home. It includes doctor-prescribed medications to treat over 39 medical issues like respiratory infections, strep throat, pneumonia, UTIs, and more.
No waiting to see the doctor and no standing in line at the pharmacy. It's right here.
Every home should have at least one medical emergency kit, and here's how to order.
Order online and save $45. Your kit to treat dozens of common and serious illnesses is rushed to your door. Visit urgentcarekit.com/news, promo code NEWS. That's urgentcarekit.com/news, promo code NEWS.
At Omaha Steaks, we take premium aged steak and turn it into pure ground burgers like this. Get 8 new Wagyu smash burgers free with the Burger Perfection Flight. Just $99.99 at omahasteaks.com/TV. Burger perfection guaranteed.
Sensitive mouth and gums? Ever heard of Closest mouthwash? Your dentist and hygienist have. They know Closest is ultra gentle for sensitive mouths with non-burning mouthwashes that freshen breath, improve gum health, and strengthen teeth. Closest, the gentle mouthwash for sensitive mouths.
I'm Elmer Heinrich, at 92 years of age with my wife Shirley, who is 83. Now both of us are still cutting a wide swath in life, all because of Immuno 150. Now we are asking you to use Immuno 150 like we do. Give it a chance for at least 90 days so that you can see what 70 plant minerals and 80 additional nutrients can do for you.
It really is incredible.
Don't place your order until after you've watched the 3 videos on our website.
You can join the Tunnel to Towers mission to do good by donating your car to today's veterans. Your car donation will help Gold Star families, as well as injured veterans, our first responders, and our homeless veterans. Donating your car is quick and simple. Any car is accepted, and we will pick up the car for free. Simply call 844-BRAVES.
By donating your car, you can make a real difference. You can do good.
I've been using Experian Boost to help raise my credit scores, but Experian Boost is even better because now my monthly insurance payments could help boost my scores too. It does it instantly and it's free. So get it through the Experian app.
Every day, bumps and bangs happen. Bruises are optional. Use daily dermatologist-recommended Dermend and reduce the appearance of bruises. Get Dermend Moisturizing Bruise Cream in the first aid aisle.
Oh, leave it to my home state of the Socialist Republic of Connecticut to not learn anything from the past few years, maybe 6-7 years. And that vaccine mandates don't do anything but sow distrust and resentment, and people like me still don't get them anyway. The State House passing a bill last night expanding the state's public health commissioner, his power to establish what they say are vaccine recommendations, claiming that they are now new vaccines being mandated even for adults. The Dems also want to suspend religious liberties when it comes to exemptions from school vaccinations. But I can predict how this is probably going to go. They're going to start taking things away unless you get the recommended vaccine. Want a hunting license? Got to get a vaccine. Gun license? Go get a shot. I will sue you back to the Stone Age if you try to do that to me. And then I'll just say no the whole time anyway. Like I said earlier, the libs go crazy and just let them. Let them. Don't try to water it down in the State House. It makes it easier to challenge in court when they pass really crazy stuff. Connecticut State Senator Rob Sampson and Press Secretary for Connecticut Residents Against Medical Mandates, Amber Webster. Amber, I mean, there's going to be a lot of people, including me, with just giving them the finger and not doing this.
No, I know. And unfortunately, they're making it as hard as possible for people to circumvent this. They are setting up the framework for workplace mandates, tying this to insurance plans, making sure that it's tied through K through 12 education, preschool daycares, everything will be affected. And parents and residents of Connecticut are going to have to make some difficult decisions to circumvent the supermajority's new healthcare plan for the state of Connecticut.
Yeah, which is not a healthcare plan at all. But Rob, if one thing from a guy from the outside I could plead with you, let them go to the absolute nth degree, make this as crazy as possible so it's easier to challenge in court.
I couldn't agree more, Carl. And, this is the same thing we see from the Connecticut Democrats all the time, which is, obviously they're going down the power and control lane. But I think they're also trying to do one other thing, which is they're trying to actually send a message to Connecticut residents, particularly Connecticut residents that value freedom. Gun owners, homeschoolers, people concerned about religious freedom. And they're sending a message to them that they're just not welcome in our state. And that's why we keep seeing these bills one after another, just empowering the government and basically making a threat to people that value liberty.
Yeah. Well, and then people like Ron DeSantis in Florida will be like, yeah, come on down. We'll give you, it's unbelievable. All right. The government overreach, though, is actually, it's stunning here, Amber. It's like, and it's causing skepticism over all this stuff. But there's a poll showing that more than half of Trump voters are skeptical on vaccines, and more than a third of Kamala voters even felt the same way. And Americans are generally skeptical on vaccines, and especially when you're not allowed to question them. Like, what is going on here?
Yeah, people have been skeptical, especially since COVID. Liquor stores were open, but churches were closed. And this type of public health policy is exactly what erodes public trust. We had over 3,000 pieces of testimony submitted to this bill, and over 95% of them were in opposition to the bill. Nurses, doctors, parents, public health officials do not think that this is the best way to go about things, and I think it's going to backfire on them, unfortunately.
Rob, do you just have a bunch of Democrats sitting in there? I mean, I'm friends with a lot of you guys up at that legislature. Do you just have these experts walk in and be like, I've been doing this for 40, 50 years or whatever, and this is my recommendation. And you've got some 35-year-old person who's never had a job outside of government being like, nope, I know better than you.
Absolutely, every day. And what's worse about that is that they're just making policy for political purposes. There's no actual discussion about what's best for the residents of Connecticut. It's only about how the Democrats can rig the next election by using the next big thing. Today we were
can't
talking
vote
about
unless you're vaccinated in Connecticut.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, most people don't know that, there's 70, 80 vaccines now. I think when we were kids, it was probably half a dozen. So it's not surprising that people are concerned about new things, the COVID vaccines, the mRNA vaccines. This is a brave new world, and people should value their freedom.
Amber, if the vaccines work, why don't the people who get them just say, okay, I got them, I'm protected, and if you don't want to get them, you're not protected? Choice?
Yeah, that's a question many of us are asking. There's also a pending lawsuit going on right now with 3 families versus the state of Connecticut. So they're trying to remove some protections under the Religious Freedom Restoration Act while there is pending litigation going on. The whole thing is completely asinine. That's something that normally the legislature tries to steer away from, making law that affects pending lawsuits. So it's very contentious.
You try to intervene with my hunting or gun rights, I'm filing lawsuit. Rob, Amber, appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
All right, before we go, don't feed the bears. They'll become dependent. Oh, yeah, thanks.
The press won't report the real story.
The American people are actually very smart.
Ridiculous statements.
These guys are just plain weird.
Actual scandals.
Even the immunity decision. That decision was so misreported.
That's my job, and I aim to do it every night.
Kevin Sorbo here, and I have an important message to share. The government needs more money, your money. If you owe the IRS back taxes, they can garnish your wages and levy your bank accounts. They can even seize your retirement or take your home. Don't let the IRS target you. Call the professionals at Tax Network USA. Their tax lawyers and enrolled agents are experts in powerful programs that may even help you eliminate your tax debt.
Call for a free consultation or visit tnusa.com.
WeatherTech?
isn't just for new cars. No matter how old or new your car is, it deserves WeatherTech. With laser measured protection for practically every car on the road, we've got you covered. Because messes don't care what year your car is. Whatever you're driving, we got it. We got it. We got it. Got it. We got it. We got it. We've got it. Oh, we got it. No matter what year your vehicle is, it deserves WeatherTech. Order your American-made protection today at WT.com. We're WeatherTech. You know we got it.
Healthy aging support starts here with the innovative nitric oxide science pioneered by Human, supporting your body from the heart out through circulation, blood flow, blood pressure, and energy. Results you can feel, science you can trust. Get started today at human.com.
Appliances break down, home systems fail, which means I show up at everyone's door because I'm inevitable. Unfortunately, something expensive is about to happen.
Is it the heat, plumbing, electrical, wiring, garage door, oven?
But we already have homeowners insurance. Actually, home insurance is for the unexpected disasters. A home warranty is for the everyday wear and tear that will cause your home systems and appliances to fail. So give the people at First American a call.
First American has had my back for years. It saved me hundreds. Just one call, and they send a pre-screened, qualified contractor.
Every home system and appliance fails. There's absolutely no avoiding it. But when the day comes, First American has you covered. Home breakdowns are inevitable, but the expense, that's optional.
Call First American for a free quote that could save you thousands. Plans start at just $34 a month, and right now, save an additional $200 off. Call 800-246-1447 or visit FAHW.com.
Smell that? Spring. Things out here are gotten a little too comfortable. It's time to remind these edges, and blades just who pays the bills around here. It's time to run it. Run it until the grass becomes a lawn, until the hedges duck and cover. Then, run it again.
Is your bath old and outdated, maybe even unsafe? In just one day, Jacuzzi gives you the safety you need and the personal style you want, all at a price you'll love. So your bathroom can go from this to this, this to this, or even this to this. And right now, we're waiving all installation costs and offering no interest or payments for a year.
Go to jacuzzibathremodel.com or call 800-384-6902.
Life with ear ringing sounded like a constant train whistle I couldn't escape. Then I started taking lipoflavonoid. With 60 years of clinical experience, it's the #1 doctor-recommended brand for ear ringing, and now I'm finally free. Take back control with lipoflavonoid.
Look, I've been saying it forever. Offer handouts makes you more dependent on whatever system is giving you the handout. The National Park Service has reported multiple incidents of black bears encountering people and stealing their backpacks, because there's food in it, in the Great Smoky Mountains. One incident even saw a bear bite a hiker, if you can believe it. Look, don't get me wrong. If a bear comes on my property and tries to, say, eat my chickens or attack me, it's getting a dirt nap. But bears have become accustomed to being in charge. Mankind has not asserted ourselves to remind them that we are actually, in fact, at the top of the food chain. These bears have also figured out that hikers bring food, and oftentimes they feed them. More bears look for more hikers then. Maybe don't feed the bears. There's like signs that say don't do that for a reason. I mean, they didn't just come up with that. This also sounds a lot like the American welfare system, Rob.
Yeah, there's certainly some truth to that. The Bears. You ever see The Edge? Anthony Hopkins, Alec Baldwin?
No.
Great bear movie. Really good. Huge Kodiak bear hunting two guys.
I've seen a Kodiak bear in Kodiak. It was scary.
Or no, it's a grizzly bear, I think. But yeah, it's
They're
that's
huge.
a good one.
Huge.
If you're looking for a bear movie, anyway. All right.
I wasn't, but
Good to
maybe I am now.
Maybe you are now, Carl. Good to see you.